Are you ready for the really sexy stuff? Who's a VR person in here? We got some VR people? Okay. Those of you raise your hand. Do you use the ONET? Yeah? Yeah. The ONET, well, I have to admit, I'm kind of old school. I like the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, the DOT. That's what I prefer to use. But they haven't updated it since '91. And my rule of thumb on keeping journals and things like that, when I have a graduate assistant helping me out, is if it was published before you were born, get rid of it. And I still won't let them throw out the DOT. So the Department of Labor came up with the Occupational Network Online called the ONET. And it is a great resource for consumers. It's a little bit problematic for us that are vocational evaluators or trying to do career assessment, those kinds of things. But as far as a resource for consumers, it is very good. There are, let's see if I get too far ahead of myself. There are 3 different assessment instruments that are available in the ONET. Anybody use them? Robin? I think, yeah. Got 2 people that use them. 3. Going for 4. Do I hear 4? Do we have 4 people that use them? 3 people that use them. Okay. There are 3 instruments that the ONET has, and they're set up kind of like the old General Aptitude Test Battery, the GATB, as a screener for the ONET. And one of the things you can do with the ONET is you can look for jobs by interests, you can look for jobs by values, or you can look for jobs or sort jobs by aptitudes or abilities. And so there are 3 different instruments that measure interest, values, and aptitudes or abilities. And what we have done when I got involved with this project is to look at the 3 of them and take the interest inventory, that's the one that has the most use in the general field, and the one that the Department of Labor has put a great deal of work in, and use that one as part of the online set of instruments that you're going to have available. With me? Okay, and so we've talked about the items. Deb's already gone over that in the translation process and those kinds of things. The ONET was set up to help organizations recruit workers, so employers can use the ONET, and also can use it to help select workers, not so much in the sense of screening workers. There's big disclaimers on all 3 of the instruments. This is not to be used as an employment screening tool. But it can help organizations to identify critical, how their jobs relate to interests, values, and aptitudes. And there's other factors as well, like tools and those kinds of things, which is very helpful. It helps people to choose different organizations. It links. The ONET's this wonderful database. You go into the ONET, you find a job you like, then at the you go scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you can click on find your state. You go to your state, hooks you to your state employment agency, put in the county you're working in, and it takes you to job openings for that county. And you can go back and forth. It's very fluid, easy to operate. And it helps you counselors, if you're working with someone, to provide information about jobs. Most of the jobs that are in the ONET have videos, and the videos are all captioned so that you can use that. I recognize this is not nearly as sexy as substance abuse, but one of the things, I teach in a program where we have 2 master's degrees. One's in rehabilitation counseling, the other one's in clinical and substance abuse counseling. And the shortest road to recovery is return to work. So it's something that folks who are in substance abuse might want to consider adding this tool as you're talking with someone. If you're working with someone who's in recovery and not employed, and you say, what are your goals? I think you're going to hear, I want to go back to work being said. And so this is a good tool for you to use to help someone to look at different instruments that they've got. The job descriptions are linked to lots of things. There's wages. I told you about the video clips. There also, the interest inventory is based on Holland codes. Familiar with Holland codes? Yeah, somebody go, what is a Holland code? John Holland is like the guru of interest and career assessment theory. And he says, very simply, that birds of a feather flock together. And what he means by that, or uses that metaphor, is why are you sitting in this room today? You probably like people, am I correct? You probably social. If you're a rehabilitation, I guess you are, if you're sitting in here. If you're a rehabilitation person, then you probably are very realistic and you like to solve problems. And then depending on if you're male or female, there's some other ways we can go with that. But Holland codes, the realistic, the RACIC codes that we've got up there that are used in the interest profiler, which I'll get into in just a minute. The ONET is also hooked into the occupational outlook. It's got green jobs, it's got promising jobs, and it tells you those kinds of things. You can also look at the incumbent's education level and match jobs with education level, training level, and then like I say, it's linked to jobs that are open, and it takes about 30 minutes to complete the instrument. And you know what the cost is? I've seen one. Nothing. It's free. You've already paid for it. Anybody pay income tax? Who pays income tax? You don't pay income tax? Oh my God. I'm not going to tell. But your income tax has already paid for this. It's part of your tax dollars at work. So these are all the different career exploration tools that are available. The one that we are looking at is the Interest Profiler short form, which is an online version that's available. We're looking at the 60-item software version. Here's some stuff you need to know about the Interest Profiler. Here's the reason people who are working in deafness don't like it, is that it requires an 8th grade reading level. And you go, oh damn, that's something I don't want to use. It's too high a reading level. It's not going to be appropriate. Well, that's true. That's a problem. However, getting around that problem by having it translated into American Sign Language, you've just bypassed the need for reading. So it's very helpful. You also need, the developers suggest that the person be over 14 years of age, because they've got to have some vocational maturity in order to make choices, make those kind of choices. There's 60 items. There's the RACIC scales, 10 items per scale. It is both a reliable and valid instrument. I love teaching test and measures, and I teach reliability and validity and have a great time teaching it. However, I find that not everybody shares my passion. So if you are of the majority that don't share my passion for that, just know that it's a good test. Just take my word for it, it's a good test. You can self-administer, that's the preferred way, but it can be group administered if you like. One of the problems with, all of you in deafness, if you've used any kind of instrument, either any of the ones that we've got here or any other instrument, you've thought up your own signs for how you're going to sign stuff. And those of us that like tests, we get a little nervous when people just start changing stuff around in tests, because then you start changing the way the test was built. And so by having a standardized sign administration, you're preserving this psychometric integrity, which is a really nice. For those of us that really like tests, that's a cool thing. And if you don't like the test and this back part of the test, just know it's a good thing. And it will help you. And then we talked one time about one of the things that I can't remember where we were. I think Deb and I were presenting it's her statement, but I'm going to steal it. She was saying that it will standardize the signs that you may use. Have you ever seen a standardized sign language vocabulary for assessment? I haven't. I've got the Sliger method of doing it, but that's going to be different than your methods of doing it. So I think that's a good thing. That's one reason I got involved with this. The other thing, I have to digress for just a second. Valpar component work samples, VALPAR, Valpar component work samples. A long time ago, they developed videotaped instructions to go with their work samples, and they hired the National Theater of the Deaf to come in and to sign that. And I was one of the reviewers of that, and they didn't go through all this stuff. They just had it flat signed by somebody from the National Theater of the Deaf. And I remember sitting clients down in front of it and doing that, and it was, God, those are the most beautiful signs I've ever seen. Those guys and those men and women from the NTD, beautiful sign language. And so I remember asking the client, I said, what did he say? He said, I don't know, pretty science. I don't know what it was. So they didn't take all the care that Deb, and Jared, and Joe, and all the other participants are doing with making sure that this is a standardized instrument and one that will be useful in the field. So there's old Holland. I always like to see if you've got somebody that you're going to cite. There's John Holland. That's what he looked like. He passed away a few years ago. And he's got that RACIC code: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And so the 60 items, there's 10 items for each one of the different Holland codes. And so what he says is that if you like to do things, you know, that birds of a feather flocks together, then you will do them with other people and you will find an environment. So we are all social people. We're all social people. That's something that we like, and we're drawn to social situations. Otherwise, we might be sitting in some kind of neuroscience thing. At East Carolina University, I get all these announcements of doctoral dissertations in chemistry and in the hard sciences and at Brody School of Medicine. And I understand the words, but I have absolutely no interest in going. How many of you would go to something like that? Probably not. But you would go to something like Deb was talking about different treatment methodologies and things like that. That's how this works, this RACIC code. It helps people to sort by their areas of interest. And so people will find out that, and then they will go to a job zone. How am I doing on time, Jared? Okay. Go into a job zone. And those of you that use the ONET, job zones are how much training you need in order to be prepared for that job. So for those of you who are in here with a master's degree as a rehabilitation counselor, you're in, there's 5 job zones. You're in job zone 4. And Deb and I with our doctorates are in job zone 5. All that means is we had more persistence in education. Doesn't mean we're smarter, it just means we're more persistent in what we did. And so job zones talk about how much education, how much experience, and on-the-job training you need in order to be able to do that job. Kind of cool stuff. And the ONET Interest Profiler, after you take the instrument, it will give you the results of realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. It gives you that nice little bar graph. And it's very easy to see which one is your highest interest. You also get a numerical score. In this particular one, it looks like there's a tie between investigative and social. And this happens to be mine. I took it just to have fun with it, which kind of goes along with my need to investigate, find out, and do things like that. Also my social, I'm kind of a social person. The thing that surprised me was that artistic showed up, because I'm not that artistic, but I do like music and the arts and those kinds of things, so that's probably where it came from. And then you can choose different job zones to explore. So in this particular instance, the I and the S are high, job zone 2. And going into job zone 2, it explains about different experience that you need to have, training, education, usually high school education for job zone 2, an example of careers, gives you something great to talk about, and then it lists different jobs that are those interests at that level of education and training. And for Job Zone 2, with that level of interest, you can see that there's actors, child care workers, craft artists, dietetic technicians, home health aides, and lifeguards, ski patrol, and other recreational jobs. Boy, that's pretty diverse. Well, that's based on interest, not values, not abilities, but on interest. You'll also see that it has bright outlook, and that means that the job is growing faster than average. So if you want somebody, if you're trying to give career advice on the ones that are listed here, child care workers is a job that has a bright outlook. So if somebody's thinking about that job, then you still have to look at values and abilities, but their interest matches up there. There are no green jobs, and green jobs are energy producing jobs, solar, wind, etc. And it has those particular jobs. And then it also talks about apprenticeship related jobs. There's also My Next Move, which is available, and one way you can get to this online is to go to My Next Move, and you would select, I'm not really sure what I want to do. So you start with, if you have your RACIC code and you know what it is, you can bypass taking the inventory again. You come to this particular screen when you're in there and you enter your scores, and then you start sorting again by the process I just showed you. You can also browse the ONET by interests. See a little common, realistic, investigative, see all those? You with me? Have I lost anybody? I love this stuff, and I just forget that everybody thinks this is the coolest thing that's been out there. And they're going, oh God, how much longer is he going to drone on about ONET stuff? And you can search your interests, and you can set it up. You can see that you can do first realistic, second investigative, third social if you want to. And when you do a search, these are the jobs that come up. You can click on the jobs and find out more information about them. You can also see that it sorts them by job zone, and then by the name of the job, if it's a bright outlook job or not. So if you're using the interest profiler, the pros are it's free. You've got Holland codes, direct link to the ONET, which is free, and it's very useful for career counseling. Of concern, of course, is that 8th grade reading level. If it's interpreted, that removes some of that. You also need to consider the digital divide and how well the client that you're seeing knows how to use and operate a computer. There are still people that go, they'll get a mouse and they'll pick it up and they'll go like this because they're not used to using a computer. Maybe that's an Eastern North Carolina thing, I don't know. But there are still folks that are out there like that. So you need to look at that. The best practice, of course, I put this one in there, is that you don't want to just use one instrument. You need to get some kind of, use another instrument or some way to triangulate the data to make sure that it's what you need to have. So item development on the profiler. This is what it looks like if you take it online. And recognize him? I've never met the man, but I feel like I know him. He could come in and eat dinner with me or something like that. I've watched these things, I don't know, a couple hundred times at least. And when you've got 3 or 4 competing ones, and you go, what, and which one is this? And you go back and forth. And so here's some of the forward translation stuff. How would you assign teach an individual an exercise routine? Well, here was the ASL gloss that was used. Teach person how to exercise. That okay? Yes, no? I need some kind of feedback, folks. I can hear, so you can auditorily go, amen, yes, it's good. Or if that's not it, you can shake your head like this. But to sit out there and look at dead eyeballs is difficult. I need y'all to give me some energy here. Help me out a little bit. Does that ASL gloss look good? Yes, no, it's okay. And what I'm picking up is like, okay. Help people with personal or emotional problems. Help people, they have either internal emotional issues, struggles. Example, people themselves feel bad, sad, confused. Okay? Okay, got a few like that. Proofread records or forms. you look editor forms. I remember, we didn't put this one up here. I remember the one that was the most difficult. Was it marketing? Marketing a line of clothing? That one went on forever. How would you sign market a line of clothing? Yes.
As far as the gloss, I work at Washington School for the Deaf, and for the ASL gloss, I think it's great trying to make the ASL translations, but I notice as I'm looking at those, you also have to look at the topic function. For example, you would say the topic first, exercise, and put that first, and then that's how I do that first one. But the second one I think is really related to emotions and personality, so I would put that first, and then I would try to move around that grammar structure to get to the point of that, and then add the other sides, the details about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there have been many, many discussions. These are some of the first iterations of that process. And this is where we start from, and then you take it and it gets signed, and then it gets translated back, and if it comes back and it's not right, as Deb said, it gets redone. And what she didn't say is, and redone, and redone, and redone, until it's honed. These are some of the first iterations that we had. Yeah, but it's to show you, you're exactly right. That's the process. That's why this is so difficult, is to try to get all of those things. And I bet in this room, it would be very difficult to get consensus on how's the best way, what is the best sign for each one of the words that we've got up here. So yeah, it's a difficult process. Calculate the wages of employees is another one that we had. A redo is help conduct a group therapy session. I've got some of those I'm going to skip. What has happened after we got, you saw the 5-point Likert scale of like, don't like, and those kind of things. In the middle of development on this, the Department of Labor came out with a set of emojis to go with this, and which, God bless them. We have this saying in the South, bless their hearts. Bless their hearts for bringing us that emoji anchors that are going to be used. And that's the emoji anchors that were used. And so we now have to match that up with the ASL, make sure that they all match up. Do I have time for that? Or? Okay. Okay, at the end we'll come back into that. Jared, good, thank you.